It's no secret that I love automations. I would prefer that something happened in the background rather than me having to bark a command at Siri. One of the things that makes automations really work for us are sensors. In this video, we're looking at the Koogeek DW1 door and window sensor. Let's get into it. Greetings Internet, it's Dustin again with my HomeKit Home, back again with another one for you. I'm excited again today because we get to step back into the world of automation land and start looking at some more sensors. In this one, as we saw at the top of the video, we are looking at the Koogeek DW1 door and window sensor. Now, this isn't just specifically for doors and windows. We can use it with any sort of object that can separate, right? So you have one piece, and if they come together, they go away. We can actually automate whatever that is. So what we'll do in this video, we'll unbox the Koogeek DW1. We'll look at how to set it up. Then we'll look at what we can do with it both in the Koogeek app as well as in Apple's Home app. And then at the end, I'll give you my final thoughts on it. So let's get into the unboxing. So to give you a brief overview of the device itself, it is a Bluetooth connected smart home device. It also requires a CR2450 watch style battery, which should get you about 1 year of life out of it, and you can replace it fairly easily. In the box itself, we do get a reset tool, and we have a video on how to do that. If you want to check that out, it's in the description box and up above in the iCard. Here's the device itself. You can see that we have the little tab there, which we'll pull out to activate and set up the device. Speaking of setting up the device, let's go into the app. So here is the Koogeek Home app on the App Store. Now, Koogeek does have a couple of other apps, so make sure that you choose the Home. So we want to allow Koogeek to access our home data, and the first thing that we'll notice once we swipe through our scenes here is that we have to log in. This is one of the things that I dislike about the app, is that we actually have to kind of set up with Koogeek. So we'll go ahead and do that. No need for you to see that. And we'll tap that plus button, and we'll go ahead and add the device to HomeKit. As you can see, Audrey's trying to help us there, but she's kind of waiting. There we go. So here is the device itself. We'll go ahead and add it to HomeKit. Easy breezy, no problems there. And here's how it looks on the setup guide. Now, we can adjust the name, right? We can choose which room it's in. One of the cool things that we have with these particular types of devices is the ability to change what type of device it is, right? So since it's a contact sensor, Apple assumes that we want to use it in a variety of different ways. So we can consider it just a standard contact sensor, or we can go in and choose from a variety of different types. So we can choose maybe if we want it to be a door, and you can see how the iconography changes there as well, and we can choose from a variety of different options there. I'll let you guys go ahead and explore that. So looking at the Koogeek Home app and some of our different things that we can do. Now, since it is a Bluetooth device, it does take a little while to connect to your phone, your home hub, what have you. So the reaction initially might be a little bit slow. Automations don't seem to be too bad with it, but getting the log into the app can be a little bit laggy to begin with, but once you're up and running, you should get a pretty good response out of it. Looking at some of the things that we can see here in the Koogeek app, of course, we can download the log from the device itself, and we can see when the device was opened and closed. Unfortunately, because it is just a contact sensor, we can't see who actually opened and closed it, but that would be maybe a job for a HomeKit camera. That's another episode. And so some of the other things that we can do, we can also change the name of the device. We can see what our firmware is. Now, when I did receive the device, I did get a firmware update, which was a nice surprise, but I wasn't able to actually record that for you guys. And we can also, we can remove the accessory from our HomeKit setup as well. And as you can see here, we have Koogeek gently reminding us that we are in fact running the latest version of the firmware. Thanks, Koogeek. Now I wanted to do something a little bit different in this video, and that's something I always recommend that people do when adding an accessory to their HomeKit home, and that's to use HomePass. If you're not familiar with HomePass, it allows us to, via the cloud, to store all of our HomeKit codes in one single place. It's an amazing app and should be part of every HomeKit aficionado's arsenal. So it's really straightforward to use. We'll tap that add button at the top right, and we can choose to either add a new accessory or add an existing one. Since we've already set up our accessory here, we'll go ahead and choose our accessory. Now, obviously, I'm not practicing what I preach. So what I'll be doing after this video is going through here and adding all of these HomeKit codes to my HomePass setup. Right, but we'll go ahead and add these sensors so you can see how all of this looks. So of course we have all of this, kind of standard information. We see which home it's in, we see which room it's in, the name of the device. We have our HomeKit code there. Now, the interesting thing about this app, and it has grown and improved since it was first released, but we can add the code manually, which is fine. No big deal there unless it's like a QR code or an NFC chip. But what we have the ability to do now is to scan the code just as we would with HomeKit when setting up the device. And the OCR is pretty good. I've never had any issues with it, but you may want to go ahead and confirm that it is in fact the correct HomeKit code. And once you've done that, you are good to go. You can tap done and it will be added to your cloud. And as you saw at the beginning, there's also the Touch ID, which makes it even more secure. If you're not already using it, you should be, and you can find a link to it in the description box down below. So looking at this sensor in Apple's Home app, we can see that it does show up as a door since we went ahead and labeled it as a door in the Koogeek app, right? And we have our standard things that we can do. Of course, we can change the name, we can look at the room it's in, we can change the room, we can create a new room if we so desire there, but we can also change the type of accessory, right? And we can also allow for notifications. Now this will be pretty important for contact sensors in general because you may want to know when it's been opened. You can also see here that we can get a little bit more granular with the conditions here and whether or not someone's home, the time, people, all of those sorts of things. That's a really useful tool, especially for something like a contact sensor. If you have it on a door or a window, you might want to be notified at different times when these things are being opened and or closed. Now, it may not seem like there's a lot going on with contact sensors here, but where they really start to shine is when you use them in conjunction with automations, and we'll link in the iCard above for a video on that. One of the things that I really like about the DW1 is its size. So we have the two pieces, and the smaller piece is actually pretty small. The other piece with all of the smarts in it, it is a little bit wide, and so it does kind of stick out as opposed to some of its other competitors in the market that are a bit more slender. But I think it's a really good size, and it is pretty inconspicuous, I would say. In terms of functionality and responsiveness, it is just as responsive as any other Bluetooth accessory that you're going to find. So one of the annoyances that we see there is that it takes a little bit for the sensor to kind of jump online, but once it does, it's pretty responsive. Now, the only real problem that I found in terms of the installation was the magnetic field. So in my home, all of the door frames are steel. And so what started to happen was that there was some interference from the steel, and it was showing as it was always closed. And so one of the ways that we can get around this, it's kind of a hack, if you will, but we can add a couple of pieces of double-sided tape underneath the sensors in order for them to line up so that they can kind of separate from the steel itself. This is a problem that has been looked at in some other contact sensors, and in fact we've got one that we'll link up above that actually has some spacers that it includes in the box that will actually help you to resolve this issue if this is something that you experience. terms of the app, well, we don't really get a whole lot extra other than our log, which can be pretty useful depending on where you have this particular device. There are two things that I dislike about the app itself. The first is that when you do have to log in with your email address, any extra place on the internet where I can put my email address, I'm just not a big fan of. The second part is that there's a tab for you to buy more Koogeek stuff. I completely understand the importance of kind of selling your own brand, of course, but to put it as the second tab in your app, it's a little bit much, I think, and I found that in pretty bad taste. You know, the Koogeek lineup of HomeKit-enabled accessories is a pretty interesting one. They do have some features that a lot of other HomeKit-enabled accessories don't have. For example, their light strip is actually powered by USB. They have the smart padlock, which is a really interesting one, and we've actually reviewed that, and you can find a link to that up above. And they have their air sensor that they just came out with. It's a really interesting brand, but it's kind of hard to figure out where they're going and kind of what their business model is. But I think they're solid products in general. So which is your preferred HomeKit contact sensor and how do you use it? Let us know in the comments down below. Also in the description box, you'll find an Amazon Associates link to pick up the DW1 door and window sensor. Also in the description box, you'll find links to all of the channels and videos that I mentioned in this video today, as well as links to our social media and the blog over at myhomekithome.com. As always, if you found the video useful, give us a great big thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And if you want to be notified whenever we release new videos, hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever we release new content. Well, I think that about covers everything I have for you today. I do thank you for watching, and until I see you in the next one, this has been Dustin with My HomeKit Home.